Hi everyone, my name is Kaia Holder. I am a junior at Taylor High School and my Anthropocene topic is swing sets. The swing set as we know it today is often credited to Charles Wicksteed, who installed the first official playground swing in 1921 at Wicksteed Park in the UK. It was built from sturdy steel and suspended by ropes or chains. The swing was designed to do one thing remarkably well, and that was to move a seated human body through space using momentum and gravity. The goal is simple and almost scientific: to reach the highest point possible before gravity brings you back down again. For a brief moment, when you're at the tallest point, you are neither rising nor falling, but you are just suspended and weightless, and it feels like you are a bird pretending to fly. As a child, I believed the entire point of a swing set was to reach the tallest point, or even fly so high that your butt flies off the seat for a split second, and you have to hold onto the chains to stabilize yourself. I suppose swing sets are generally marketed towards children, although I suspect that's mostly because adults are too old for fun and won't let their fun side take control of them. Or they believe they are too big and would break the swing. At least that is what my dad said when I always asked him to swing at playgrounds. When you were young, how the swing was built meant nothing to you, but the sensation you felt on the swing was everything. You pump your legs, lean back, lean forward, and trust that the physics will work itself out. The higher you go, the louder the wind becomes in your ears until everything else, including the ground, the people watching, and the laws of gravity, disappear momentarily. I reached the top thousands of times, but eventually I noticed that the highest point wasn't the most important one. I remember when I was 6 years old, my family moved from New York to Texas after 4 years of a life I had grown comfortable calling my own. I handled this transition with what I would now describe as a commitment to extreme silence for the entire car ride. I stared out the window and did not speak one word, and I did not cry either because I was in denial, which was a quieter form of sadness. When we arrived at our new house in Katy, Texas, the suburbs felt painfully small compared to the world that I had left behind, and I was overwhelmed with disappointment. My parents spoke excitedly about fresh starts and new opportunities, while I couldn't help but miss my home. I cried for numerous days, and I informed them repeatedly that this was not my home and that New York was my home. Then one afternoon there was a knock at my door and my mom called me downstairs. I stopped down every step, counting them as I went and wearing my frown like armor. I opened the door and saw a girl standing on our doorstep. "Hi," she said, "my name is Elise. I heard a little girl around my age had just moved in and I wanted to know if she wanted to play on my swing." My mom looked down at me and smiled. I dropped my pink baby blanket onto the cold floor without hesitation and ran outside. Elise's swing was unlike any I had ever seen before. It was a blue circular swing wide enough to lie across as it hung from the largest tree I had ever encountered. I climbed on immediately and my head dangled off one side while my legs rested on the other, and Elise laid across the swing opposite to me. We pushed off the swing and began to sway slowly, at first and then higher. We talked a little bit, but it was about nothing important because our main focus was watching the sky as we passed by it on our swing. I think that one evening in July was the first time my happiness was founded on a swing and came with a friendship. When Elise and I shared the blue swing in her backyard, our friendship existed in balance. The swing hung from the strongest branch of the largest tree, and when we encountered it together, the motion slowed. The combined weight limited how high we could rise, creating a steady balance, and the time it felt insignificant. Now I understand that the restraint was precisely what made it work. The swing was supposed to operate on equilibrium. Neither one of us could dominate the movement, and neither of us tried. The swing responded to us equally, holding our friendship within safe and consistent bounds. Without realizing it, I learned that closeness required limitation and that balance often matters more than momentum. Eventually that balance changed when I got my first own swing at the ripe age of 9 years old. It was green and circular and hung in my backyard as something that belonged entirely to me. Elise still came over and pushed me, standing behind the swing and giving it motion, but the structure itself had changed. With only my weight on it, the swing responded more aggressively. I went higher, faster, and farther than before, and I began to associate height with success and control with confidence. Swings, however, are not designed to be governed by ego. Once momentum comes from a single source, the system becomes unstable. The greater the height, the harsher the return to the ground. I did not recognize this as a warning, but instead I embraced the imbalance. I expected Elise to support my superiority without making me feel inferior, and gradually I became a controlling and unkind friend. As we grew older, additional forces disrupted what remained of our friendship. Popularity and the illusion of maturity pulled my attention elsewhere. I mistook emotional distance for independence and popularity for growth. And eventually, I let my egotistical nature grow while my kindness depleted. The swing was no longer between us to moderate the motion, and without it, our friendship drifted apart. By 7th grade, Elise and I were no longer friends. I saw her sometimes, but I disregarded her existence and carried on with my day. But other days, I felt some sort of heartache that I had become the evil dictator of Parkwick Lane. That year, I built a swing by myself using a wooden plank and rope. I guess the swing functioned adequately. It lifted me off the ground and allowed me to swing freely, yet it lacked the stability of the swing Elise and I once shared because there was no counterweight, no restraint, and no shared control. I dictated the height and the speed in the direction that I wanted, but the swing revealed the truth I had avoided alone. I had complete control but no balance. What I once interpreted as freedom was in reality isolation. My desire for superiority had been replaced by my capacity for connection, and in gaining control, I had lost my best friend. I realized that the swing never failed. It operated exactly as designed, stable when shared, unstable when dominated. When I was with Elise, the swing balanced us, but when I tried to control it alone, I pushed it too high, and eventually the motion was extreme and wasn't meant to sustain me for long. But the most revealing moment came not years later, but the very next day after I built my solo wooden swing. I woke up proud, convinced I had built something new, something all on my own. I didn't need Elise to help me build a swing anymore. I climbed onto the single plank of wood and swung my body back and forth, trying to mirror the motions I had when I swung with Elise. At first it worked just as I expected, higher and faster than any ride we had shared. I felt untouchable and I felt in control. I felt better than balanced, and then my swing broke within seconds. The rope snapped, the board swung out, and I tumbled backward onto the grass. There was no partner to study the motion, no shared rhythm to distribute the force. The swing, like every relationship I had ever known, could not operate on its own. It was designed for two. Friendship is like a swing, it cannot function unless two people are balancing it. That day showed me exactly what I had become. Someone who tried to elevate themselves at the expense of a friendship. I had let my ego dictate my emotion and my actions toward Elise, and had replaced a shared balance with what I confused with superiority. I had pursued height, the thrill of being above everyone else, and in doing so I lost harmony, the thing that actually kept me grounded. According to the National Institutes of Health, power imbalances and dominance in friendships are linked to negative outcomes because they disrupt mutual influence and respect. Adolescents who perceive dominance as being in control experience more distress and lower self-esteem in friendships, underscoring how crucial equality is in a healthy peer relationship. In my case, the swing wasn't just a piece of rope. It was a mirror. When we swung together, the motion was governed by both of us and it was steady. But when I swung alone, it was governed by me and it collapsed. The swing never chose balance for me, it only reflected what was already happening inside me, which was the values of being above everyone else, and allowing the structure of friendship to fall. So I lost Elise, not to age or distance or fate, but to an imbalance that I created. I mistook ego for freedom and control for confidence, and like the rope that snapped under too much pressure, the imbalance was never strong enough to sustain the weight of a real friendship. Therefore, every now and then, I look at her across the street and smile, wave, and eventually walk away. And in that smile, I acknowledge her blue eyes as a remembrance of the blue swing we once shared. I rate Swing Sets 2 stars.